Okay, here's my T20 without the engine, and scattered across my bench are the various engine parts, and hopefully on this video I'll show you a few hints how to put them together. Remember, this is a race engine which is quite different to the road version, although many of the hints and tips will be exactly the same. First off, clean those casings well. Get rid of all the junk, all the old gaskets. I regularly scrape a little razor blade carefully across these edges to get the old gasket off. Go around the edges to get the gasket glue off. Make sure they're nice and clean. Do not, when you're doing this, lose these little locating rings. There's one here, as you can see, they're in two places on the gearbox. One here, one here. You've got little locating pips here, here, on the kickstart shaft, on a road bike, and of course there's just the two on the race bike there. On a road bike you'll also have them in here, here and here, which I don't have in mine because my crank's located differently. These locating rings, do not lose them, be very careful, it's very important. Okay, the casings get damaged over many years and may stress and move a little, so you'll see there's a little countersink on the edges of all the holes just around here, very small. You can probably just pick up on the camera, that's a big one. Small one here on the thread, small one on the thread, and again on the other casing, just helps the thing to remove any excess aluminium that's raised up around that edge. So give it a really good clean, rub it down, and then possibly rub an oil stone over these surfaces afterwards, a well-oiled oil stone, just to get rid of any high points. They are old casings, been apart many times. If you look after them, they'll stay secure. Right, first job we're going to do is put the gear selector shaft back in. In this space here is where the gear selector goes, and there are three selectors. There is the double one, which locates 5th and 6th, and the other two, which are actually identical, you don't have to worry too much about which way around, which do 1st, 2nd and 3rd and 4th, and they sit on this kind of drum. Now, though this is a simple job, there's one easy thing to get wrong, and this is this gear, the double one. If you look carefully, you'll see there's a thin edge that side and not the other side on the circle. Thin edge there. That has to locate in there like that. The locating ring, which I've just mentioned, there is on the inside. If you put it the other way around, it will fit and the engine will be assembled, but when you start it up, you'll find it's sort of engaged in gear all the time, making a funny noise. Commonest mistake you can make. And then the other two drop in quite simply, there and there, and then with a bit of care you get your shaft, which you took out earlier, from this side, put it in and locate it all. Then pins and things later. Okay, the selector forks are in position now. There's the blanking plate on this side. On a road bike you'd have, of course, the neutral indicator mechanism, little neutral, been modified in this one. And as you can see, here's the forks in position. This is the 5th and 6th gear change, and you can see I've put a new pin in. All of these have got new pins to hold them in position, and you should put the pin in from the rounded side and bend the two tags out on the other side. So there we have 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th. That's your gear shafts in, and now I've got to put a mechanism on this side, the change mechanism, which is this piece here. It's pretty simple, but make sure you don't lose the two springs and plungers. There should be a little spring and a little plunger each side. And that's what that mechanism should look like when you've got it all in correctly. No point describing it there. Now underneath the engine is the three nut holes that do cause so much problem, where people can't quite work out what they're for. This one over here is the indent in which this part goes here. And as I said in I think my first video, if you put the spring gets compressed, and if you're having gear selection problems, sometimes put a little washer or two underneath the spring, adds a little bit more to it, and it cures problems. Sounds improbable, but it is. That goes in that one, and the other two are the two simple drain nuts. One of mine's got a fibre washer, the other one hasn't. No particular reason, just probably what I had lying around at the time. You can see they're magnetic, and that's that one and that one. Sorry, that one. And if you're draining the oil, this is the front one if you've got a 3-bearing crank. So if you are doing an oil change on a road bike, you have to undo that one, then that one, and then that one to change your oil, leaving the indent alone. Okay, so I'll put those in now, then get gears and clutch and crank and all the other bits in. Okay, here's the gear shafts in position here, and you can see that spins nicely, or you can just spin the clutch. Now there's a few things you've got to be very careful of here. Once again, make sure you've got the locating ring on the casing underneath this lining up. The same on the gearbox bearing here. Make sure your seal's located nice and tight there. And one of the common mistakes people make is this little piece here. If you look carefully, you'll see a cutaway at the top. That cutaway just there is opposite the little hole in the bottom of here, which locates on a pin. So you must make sure that little thing is on the top. You feel it as you line it up, locate, and the cutaway must be on the inside, not the outside, to enable the gearbox oil to get in. Same as this one here. I could perhaps move it. You can see this one here. I can move it from side to side a little, and then if I push it down tight, that's in position. The cutaway is there. You can feel it's locating on that peg inside. If it doesn't locate on that peg, when you push the casings together, it'll ram a peg through the casing and crack it down here. I've seen many like that. There's your space for your crankshaft. Once again, check your locating. Pegs are, well, it pegs your hemispheres are in place. We're going to, on a road bike, you'd have your pegs here. Mine have pegs that fit in here, here, here and here, because I've got RD/TZ type bearings with a pegging. So I'm going to put the crank in now, then we can get the gasket material on, have a quick check over and bolt together. Not forgetting, of course, your kickstart bush, which I've got to put here. As I haven't got a kickstart, I need a blanking plug, and the blanking plug is here. So we'll have a little bit of gasket glue on that in a moment or two when we gasket up, and that fits in there. Just a little plug I made on my lathe. You don't need one on the other side, of course, because that's just connecting the clutch casing to the gearbox. Okay, so that's the bottom half. Just got to put the crank in. Obviously no kickstart, nothing like that. Just the crank, check it over, gasket glue, bolt together. Okay, that's the crank in position. Make sure that seal is in tight. Make sure that seal is in tight. On mine, the locating pegs are one there, one there, one there, that stop the bearings rotating. If your bearings are a bit loose in the casing and chattering, you can see evidence of it polishing. Use a bit of thread seal just underneath to fill the gap. Really makes it, it just helps stop it chattering a little bit. So there's the crank and gearbox ready to go together. Now the easy thing to do is to put the gasket glue on the top casing, because it's rather fiddly, as you can imagine, to get in these small places like here and here and here. So what we're going to do is put the gasket glue over this surface and then bolt it down. The gasket glue I use is 3-bond 1104. There's different versions of this. It's what's recommended by the manufacturers. It's called Yami Bond or Suzuki Grey or lots of different things. I got it from a Suzuki dealer. Not on the shelf, you have to order it. And you put it on, give it a minute or two to dry, just go a little bit tacky, and then bolt them together. Don't put too much on, it's not necessary. So we're going to bolt the casings down, put the top casing on with the screws starting with 19, turn it over, go the other ones down to number 1. We're going to then tighten up from the bottom. The big bolt's about 15 or 16 foot-pound, and the little ones around about 5 or 6. I don't really use a torque wrench, to be honest. I'm just used to nipping it up by hand, but that's around about the recommended levels. Let's get that done then. Okay, there it is, bolted together. Don't start off by doing these bolts too tight. I do them all sort of nip, just to get the casing firm together, then turn it upside down, put the other bolts in, then turn it back, just nip them up bit by bit by bit, so you can feel if it's all fitting together nicely. And then give a final tighten them all in the correct order, and away you go. So that's that side, and there's the other side. As you can see, there's the kickstart plug, so no oil can come out there. Plate on there for the the seal tightened up, the bolts that hold the seal in. If you've got a standard one, you've got some little pieces that go across 2 at a time. You'll know what I was like. So there we are. There's the bottom end assembled. Clutch cover and barrels and pistons and things next, and then I'll have it fired up in an hour or two.